Hello guys. Alright, so it's been a while and I've been getting an increasingly amount of questions on my Mark swap. Currently I'm in the middle of doing some work. I was actually looking to see if the engine was in true and straight, because I've noticed some issues that seem like the engine's a little tilted or turned just a tad. So in the midst of doing that, we went to jack up the vehicle, and I'd found coolant had come out, ran down the back, and it kind of made me worried. But turned out it's just where my crossover had leaked out, and I added some coolant last year, and it just kind of sat in under the intake rudder control. So good on that. But right now, I just was going to go over some little things while I've got this thing off, the intake, and go over what it is was done. Here is the fuel rail that's used for the Mark swap using the Mark intake. You see here it has zip ties and it's JB welded, but these mounts are from the Mark. Okay, they're for the Mark intake and they're from the Mark, both sides here, and they work excellent. I have no problems with it. The easiest thing, cut them off and mount them up. If you have a TIG welder or something, or are comfortable with welding, you can always re-weld the tabs and go about that. I also had upgraded to the EV6 connector, running the 24-pound injectors. These are from a mock. Okay. The regulator is the same on all models, but I went ahead and swapped this out anyway. I had a mock. I got a Mach 1 fuel rail. This particular fuel rail came from a Cobra. I also have a Mach 1 fuel rail as well. They're the same. There is no difference. So, also, and that's for the fuel system. And no, I did not upgrade a fuel pump. The fuel pumps are the same between all models, with the exception of the Terminator with its dual fuel pump. The EGR is tuned out of this. I do have some of the things still, just for looks, and I do have them hooked up as well. But I think when I do the C-head swap, I'm going to go ahead and hook all that stuff back up. Also, I found that I have a little issue, and I'm getting blow-by, or at least it's sucking oil. Now, it doesn't blow smoke out the back, at least not under normal conditions, but I think when I'm on it, that's when it happens. So I was looking, and it's all coming from the intake. And let me go ahead and get down in here, see if we can see. Now, one of the problems that I don't know if you really can see this too well. Hopefully it's okay. You see some of that coolant. There's some coolant down in there. Yeah. Now what's going on here is that I found that it has, and it's typical on the B heads, is that you have fuel coming in through here. Okay, fuel comes in here, and this keeps it kind of clean. And I've cleaned these out a little bit. Let me go to one. I think I cleaned that one out too. Anywho, what happens is, and especially if you still have the runner controls with the butterflies, is that the carbon, the oil, and everything that stays in that hole because it doesn't get washed out by fuel. So one thing you'll notice after a while is, you'll feel maybe power loss, stuff like that, especially if you still have the butterflies. And that's because that hole those ports are getting clogged with carbon and or oil or whatever. So it'd be wise to at times remove the intake and clean those out and clean those ports out. Here, as far as the build goes, the swap, I had upgraded to the EV6 using different connectors. I got all black connectors now, so I can go through and change. These are kind of old, but they do work. And I used all the same wire harness colors and everything, so everything is still the same. This is the this is for the TPS sensor, and this one here is for the idle air control molder. Now, as you see here, I did not have to, the tape's coming up a little bit, but I'll have to redo that. I didn't have to extend any of these. All I did was pull it out of the loom a little more, all the way back to its where it actually comes out of the harness. And so then I retaped it, and that gave me more than enough length to do both. So I didn't have to extend any of those wiring. The only wire that I ended up that you do really need to extend are the coil wires. Now, I would say to start from the farthest edge and work your way back, okay? And making sure that you have more than enough line that goes all the way to the main cable. Now, also, back here is the port or the vent hole on the Mark valve cover, which I use some of the piping from my GT and wraps around and plugs into the air intake. Now, I said this on the write-up that if you're going to do the swap, you'd be best to do get a mock valve cover. Get the mock valve covers. Get rid of the Mark valve covers. Mark valve covers will work, as you see, they do work. But the mock valve covers and Cobra valve covers have the breather out here, and things are a little different, so it's going to fit better. And what that will allow you to do as well, and save you some money, is on the GT, I have one hose that's original, which is this one, the Quick Connect, and then this one I have put on here. And this is from a Cobra kit from CJ Pony Parts. This can be this. You can use the original hose, but because of this breather being here and raised up, you can see a little bit of dirt. That's where it was rubbing. To get this to go on, it rides right on that fitting, so you don't want that. The back of it, I am using the Mach 1 heater core outlet pipe, or otherwise known as the crack pipe. Okay. Another one I showed in the write-up is I took apart the GT tube, and we went ahead and cut the reason for is the GT tube has a connect, and it just goes right up to the back of this nipple here. Instead of removing this out of the block and doing all this, this is the original Mark setup. So all we did was cut the tube from the Mark and then run the tube from the GT in the back. Okay, and just spliced it in between. It's held up fine, it works great. It's out of the way. No complications with heating or cooling. The other thing you're going to need to do is on the get it better. There we go. On the alternator wiring, you have to reverse the harness, and that is, if you don't, you'll have a battery light on all the time. Let's see what else. As far as vacuum goes, I use the vacuum lines from the GT, because like I said, I still use some of the EGR things, the EGR brackets and things. Some of those come from a Mark. I got a lot of those from the Mark engines. As far as cruise control, I don't have it hooked up in here because the cruise control is located in the driver's side fender, and I'm not digging in this one. but I do have the cable from a Mark. So if you do the swap and you want cruise control, you're gonna need to get the cabling and everything from the Mark. Okay, they don't sell it. You're gonna want to get it. Now, if you're gonna do a C head conversion, four valve with the C heads and everything, you're gonna want to get, again, the cruise control cable from a Mach or a Cobra, so that it works with that intake. Otherwise, it's not long enough. So my cable just kind of sits in the back and, you know, chills. Throttle cable, same way. The Mark cable you're going to want to get when you get the engine or your parts. Make sure you get that cable. It's going to make your life a lot easier. Plus, if you're using that intake, the Mark intake, there's a here's the top part of it, the upper part of it. There is a provision right here. The throttle cable goes down and then has a little flap that flaps over, locks it in place. So make sure you have all those parts when you do that. One thing I did notice, and I think it may be a problem, I didn't have really a bad drivability issue, but I noticed under some loads that the car acted kind of weird. So upon checking for this coolant issue and taking the intake off, I did find that this gasket here is crushed and was flat in comparison to the others. So that was a possible leak. That's a possible leak point, especially under load. So I'm getting a new set here, just waiting for that stuff to come in. But also too, with the oil that I found that's being sucked into it, I know a definite oil catch can is going to be, you know, really needed. And I've seen a lot of people go with that with 4 valves because these things do tend to use motor oil. So that is for right now what I got. But just to recap, I didn't have to change the fuel system. It is still a returnless fuel system using the stock pump. Pump's great, flow is good. Have no issues as far as that's concerned. As far as extension of wiring, things of that nature, the only things extended are the actual coil wiring. Let me bring up another point about the coil wiring before I get off here. It may be hard to see back here. But anyway, back here I have a tube on this side. On the other side is a grommet. Okay? Now, what that is that helps seal out the moisture or anything coming into the intake or into the coil packs. Okay? I've seen guys take the coil wiring from up here and just run them down. Okay? That's great. But here's the thing. The top also holds your coils in place. Okay? So if you're running them without, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. But then again, too, if you're also putting these covers on with the wiring across, why would you do that? There's a gasket here and a lip. Let's clear that up a little bit. See that gasket and the lip? Okay? That'll cut that wiring off if you tighten it down too much. Or, even over time, you could chance on having that wire break. So why would you want to do that? Best off just running them wires all the way back. Now, I'm a stickler for detail when it comes to these things. No scotch locks, no butt connectors, straight solder repair, heat shrink, and tape. Do it right, guys. Do it right. But also, as much as you can, try using the factory wiring. Okay, you can get fuel injector wiring everywhere, anywhere to extend your wires. Okay, I use color coding so it's easier to troubleshoot if I'm looking at an electronics guide. I know, okay, I need to have this wiring, so that's what it is. So any which way, that's just me. You don't have to do that, but that's just how I do it. But any which way, I hope this has answered some questions for you, and please keep asking questions. The more you think of them, the better. I try to get back to you as quick as possible. I'm not the most knowledgeable guy when it comes to all this stuff, but I've done it. Okay? I documented it as much as I could. So, and I have it on the write-up. You can find it at Warhorse Mustang Club on Facebook. There's a lot of you guys that are following that. Please post some things, say hi, post some photos. Get into it, guys. Get into it. We can have some fun with this. Because sometimes I don't always get on YouTube, so it's a lot easier to catch me on Facebook. But anyway, that's also on there as well. It's also located, if you look it up, it's also on moddedmustangs.com, on their forum site. You can find me as 32 Valve or 32V Nomad, also as Nomad GT. But yeah, you know, guys, look it up. You know, don't be afraid to ask, and let's have some fun with this. Oh, sorry, let's make this a little bit longer. Just thought of something as I'm doing this. I haven't really had it as questions, but I know it was a question when I was doing this. Is if you see down here a little bit, there is the mess of, that's your thermostat housing down there, okay? The mark piece that you should get, if you can't find this piece, you should have it. That thermostat housing from the mark will work with a little bit of trimming of some of your hoses and a little slight bends, but it will work. I was lucky enough to get a mock piece. Now the bottom half of that is the same part number, but the top halves are different, and the mock and the Cobra thermostat housing are discontinued. So if you get one, great. But if you can't find one, don't worry about it. You can find one of the marks in the junkyard and grab it, and it'll work just the same, okay? Also, too, remember, this is the hardest part. Well, actually, I'll show you this. This is the intake tube. The Mach 1 intake tube will work as well, even with the little silencer off the side. But this is a Cobra piece from a 9901 Cobra. It has the external air intake sensor, okay? Now, the new edges, I think 2000, maybe 2001, well, it would be after it were, so 2002 on up, use an integrated air intake, and that's in the mass airflow sensor. So I was able to get a mock sensor, and I went ahead and reverted it, but I left that here because there's a hole. So obviously I don't want to leak them, so the sensor's still there, but it's unplugged. Just so you guys know, you can run, because you're going to need the 24-pound injector mass airflow sensor if you're going to run 24-pound injectors. That makes your tune a lot easier. But also, too, as far as tuning goes, this is the stock ECM computer in here. Excuse me. Stock computer in here. It is running a tune from VMP Performance down in Florida. Jason is the tuner's name, and owner, I believe. Really good guy, and if you have any issues or questions, it does take a little bit of time because he's really swamped, but when he gets into it, man, he gets into it and gets it done. I'm also using an XCal 2 SCT programmer, and it's worked out so far okay. But again, guys, if you have any questions, please don't be afraid to ask. And like I said, share this as much as you guys can. Get this out here. Get this out there. I tried doing it for a while, but I need your guys' help, and we can help each other. We all love the running pony, and that's what we're here for, right, guys? All right. Peace.